Giving yourself instructions. It's a decided difference.
A Decided Difference, the podcast devoted to your success and happiness. You choose the change you want. A Decided Difference will help you achieve it. Now here's your host, Lou Ann Clark.
I have had the opportunity to interact with a large number of people over the past few weeks. These people come from varied backgrounds and have had diverse experiences. They range in age from young adults to very senior citizens. Some of them I have known for a long time, and I believe I know them quite well. Some of them I just met yesterday. But all of them have one thing in common, and you and I have this in common with them as well. They all hold certain beliefs about themselves, and they act according to those beliefs, for better or for worse. I've been visiting my 94-year-old aunt frequently because she's been in the hospital with a variety of complaints and ailments. I adore my Aunt B, as I call her, and I have a great deal of respect for the way she has lived her life. But even with all of her life experience and her wisdom, she is still a slave to her beliefs. I'm not sure anyone can do anything other than act according to their beliefs, and I don't necessarily see that as a problem. What can become a problem is acting on beliefs that are either straight up untrue or which simply don't serve your best interests. Let me give you an example. I was spending time at the hospital with Aunt B, who has had a steady stream of visitors. She has lived her life in such a way that she has dozens of friends, and our family is quite large. At times, her room has been so crowded that the nurses have suggested she might want to upgrade to a suite to host her parties. Anyway, Aunt B can only carry on a conversation with one or two people at a time, so there have been lots of side conversations going on. Probably because there is much discussion about how Aunt B will manage when she goes home, a popular topic has been how people respond to stress. I witnessed an exchange between two of her visitors that demonstrated to me how our beliefs influence our experiences. One person declared that he simply could not cope with stress at all. His partner in the conversation shared that she also could not cope with even the simplest challenges. They went back and forth, one-upping each other with stories of stressful events from their lives and how in various ways they had failed themselves and their families. They almost seemed proud of how very incompetent they could be. As you might imagine, it was pretty difficult for me to listen as the two of them dug a deeper and deeper emotional pit. I don't know if they consider themselves to be anxious and depressed people, but I would be surprised if they didn't. I eventually had to excuse myself from the situation because I was growing more and more frustrated as I listened. One thing I do to cope with stress is to remove myself from the stressful circumstances if that is a reasonable option. I do that because I have become quite good at coping, and I believe avoiding stress when possible is a healthy choice. I'm getting better at coping all the time because I believe I can cope, and I believe I am learning even more effective coping skills as time goes on. If you believe you can change for the better, you can. If you believe you can grow stronger, more resilient, and happier, you can. If you believe that you are unable to deal with whatever life throws your way, you will act as if you can't manage. If you believe something's unchangeable, you won't even consider ways to change it. After all, why would you beat your head against a brick wall? But what if the bricks turned out to be made from paper? If you want to change something in your life, the first thing you might consider doing is figuring out your beliefs about it. Keep in mind that these beliefs often masquerade as the truth. I know countless people who have held themselves back from doing something that would make their lives better, such as going back to school or leaving a bad marriage or changing jobs. They don't act because they tell themselves they're too old, or too dumb, or too broke. They confuse feeling frightened and uncomfortable with change with being incapable of making the change. And, full disclosure, I admit it, I do this also. I have held myself back in untold ways over my entire lifetime, and I still do it to this day. But because I believe change is possible, I keep working to change my beliefs about my limitations and the obstacles I face. Make no mistake, this is not easy work. It requires facing your mistakes and facing your character flaws. There is absolutely nothing fun about that. But uncovering your beliefs about what you have done and about who you are will help you move forward instead of staying stuck in the same old way of doing things. I have a friend who has dealt with some very challenging emotional issues in her life. You wouldn't believe what this woman has had to deal with. When I think about the difficulties she has faced, I can't imagine where she found the strength to keep going. As you might expect, the strength she creates for herself and her family comes from the beliefs she holds about herself. She chooses to see everything as part of a larger plan, and she finds meaning even in the most painful experiences. She told me this week that she is actively grateful for the emotional pain she has endured, because it forced her to see truths she would have preferred not to see. Once she saw those truths, she could begin to process how they affected all aspects of her life. This is highly evolved thinking, and I am in no way sure I'm in her league, although I know I am far better than I used to be. When I think of the painful circumstances I have endured over the past 4 years in particular, I have an extremely hard time feeling grateful that it all happened. But you know what? That's okay. If I can simply function effectively enough to make plans for my future and to begin carrying them out, that is sufficient for today. There may well come a time, months or years from now, when I say, I am grateful for all the pain I had to deal with because it has led me to a richer experience of life. I'm so much happier for going through all of that than I would have been otherwise. It's also possible that those words will never ring true for me. But I don't have to get to that high-level attitude in order to thrive. It's good enough to do what I can and to keep trying to do better. I believe the power to change lies within me, and I am not a victim of circumstances. I don't control everything that happens to me, but I do have the power and the right to decide what my response will be. If you want to raise your level of responsiveness and use your own strength, you can start by listening to the words you say about yourself and about how well you handle events, because you are essentially giving yourself instructions about how to behave in the future. If you say things like, I just can't cope, I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do, I can't figure this out, I have no idea how to make things better, then you will make sure your coping skills stay weak. You will remain overwhelmed and you won't find solutions. You won't actively participate in making things better. And believe me, I understand why you say such things, because I find myself saying them too. I say them because I believe in the moment that they are true. The problem is that by dwelling on such beliefs and stating them out loud, you begin to create your own future in a way that you don't want it to take shape. Changing your statements doesn't have to involve lying to yourself. Small changes in the way you say things can help you to encourage yourself to get unstuck and to move forward. For example, instead of saying, I just can't cope, you might say, it is hard to cope with this, but I'm doing the best I can, and I trust that I will get through it. This is truth. After all, you have coped up until this point. You're here, right? Rather than saying, I can't figure this out, try saying, I'm looking at this problem from all angles, and I know I will figure out how to approach it. Remind yourself of all the resources you have to get help if you need it. You can search for information online. You can ask friends how they have handled similar situations. You can listen to podcasts that give you encouragement. A year from now, things will not be the same as they are right now. Somehow, you will get through whatever your challenges are. The only question is which instructions you will give to yourself for navigating difficulty. Will you choose to believe you can't cope? Or will you find gratitude for the pain you are in? Or, like me, will you land somewhere in between, but confident that you are growing and learning and gaining strength from this experience? Whatever you may be facing now, you can count on one thing. However you handle it, you will be giving yourself instructions for how to behave in the future. So will the future you be a victim of or a victor over your circumstances? You know what? You're going to go through some hard work and possibly some suffering with either choice. So you might as well choose the one that sets you up to win down the road. As always, I welcome your questions and comments, although I may be a bit slower in responding this week as I'll be traveling for some learning opportunities. You can get in touch with me by email at luann@luannclark.com, by using the contact form at DecidedDifference.com, or by sending a message to A Decided Difference on Facebook. Have a great week, and remember, the world doesn't change. You do.